This episode is made possible by New Masters Academy, the world's absolute #1 online art school in the entire world. Click the link down below for a free cemetery trial. Thank you, New Masters Academy.
I am deep in your mind. I am deep in your... Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for the Hollywood animation industry.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about how postmodernism is killing Hollywood.
But before we get into it, make sure to smash that like button, please and thank you.
Oh, everybody, you are looking so good. So good. We are approaching the cold time of year. So everybody, bundle up with a loved one, your favorite lover, and get warm and cozy.
Or a body pillow.
With your favorite character on it.
No judgment here.
Mine has Garrus Vakarian.
Oh my gosh.
So today we're going to talk about how postmodernism is killing Hollywood. And first, we'd like to start off with the movies that we've been watching. Since the movie theaters have been sort of opening and everybody has been doing everything, doing all the things so that they can become a normal member of society,
yes.
Right? We've been trying to do the old school normal person thing of going to the movie theater.
Yeah, we were like, we haven't watched a movie in a long time in theaters. Let's go. I kind of crave it again. Yeah.
So the movie, out of all the trailers that we've watched in the past, 6 months, there was one movie. One darling little curious movie that had us going that we need to watch that.
Yes.
And what movie is that, Jenna Chan?
Lamb.
What is Lamb about?
Lamb is about a couple in, I think, Iceland, who are sheep farmers, herders, and then they were helping this sheep give birth. And the lamb that came out turns into a half goat, half human child. And then things ensue.
Yes. We should probably, if you watch the trailer, you really have to watch it to really understand what's going on. Because if you don't pay much attention to it, you probably won't understand what the hell's going on. What is this lamb? Why is it wearing a coat? But yes, it is a movie that is actually out. You think it's a joke, I know. But out of all the movies, we saw the trailers for Dune, No Time to Die, whatever Marvel movie. All that.
Yeah.
We're like Lamb,
that movie.
The movie about the Lamb child. We need to watch it. And how did we think about that movie? It was the first movie we watched in a while. It's the first indie movie that I watched that I was really happy with. I saw The Green Knight with you, and it was all right. I was like, oh, that's something.
Yeah. I liked Lamb a lot. As someone who has watched many horror movies now with you, and it's definitely an unexpected movie, and I think that's why I like it.
Yeah. Why I like it is it reminds me of a Del Toro movie that isn't over the top. And I think a lot of so many people are going to get so mad.
Yeah.
I think Del Toro is a little heavy-handed with the fantasy and with the production design. It's a little too crazy. It's a little too screaming look at me, I am high fantasy Del Toro. I have done my research. I am a Universal fanboy. I've read every single book that, what's his name?
Mike Mignola.
No, what's his name? Who did the fucking Kraken? H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh,
yeah, I've read everything. I get it. But sometimes I just want something more restrained and something that feels more like a dream that doesn't scream to me that I don't know, a million concept artists and a million billion trillion iterations came to the super cool idea. No, sometimes I just want something super simple. And when I would read fables, those little kiddie books when you're in preschool, your teachers would read it in kindergarten, and sometimes they would have really ugly looking characters. Remember they have Mother Goose books? Have you ever read those? No, you haven't,
no.
Huh? That's so sad. Okay, so everybody, you've read Mother Goose books, right? And those Aesop fables, they don't have pretty looking people, pretty looking characters. The production, the drawings aren't sexy as the professional term would be. It's not mass appeal. But for some reason, the illustrations sort of match the the text and the narrative, right? It's not a pretty story. It's not it's not a Disney story. The happiest things don't often happen to these characters. And the same thing with Lamb. Lamb is about like two normal, like they go over the top to explain that these are just two normal average people. And this very like something out of a children's book thing happens to them. And it's so restrained and it's so like quiet and it's and it's so like what I imagine like a fable to be, instead of like a Del Toro thing where it's just like, oh my god, this is a fantasy, look at that fucking tree man. Look at that fucking tree man, that fucking 13 motherfuckers in Hollywood had a fucking design. Like no, like I just want like just like simple, quiet, like a dream. Like I remember like leaving the theater after having watched Lamb. Like it's not a movie I would recommend for everyone.
Yeah, it's weird. It's if you're not into weird movies, then you'd probably feel very weird about this movie.
About like the oddness of it. It's sort of odd. The sort of like if you didn't mind the fact that Del Toro made a movie about a woman making love to a fish man, you should probably you'll be fine with this. But if you had a problem with a woman making love with a fish man, then you will have a hard time relating to the parenthood themes in like buying the parenthood themes in this. If you at least like Del Toro movies, then I think you should at least try to watch Lamb, because it's very like that, but not over the top. Yeah.
Del Toro movies, so that you don't completely get eaten alive by all the production designers in the world.
Dude, it's like, man, like, production design is cool. I love that stuff. We study that stuff. But like, you know, sometimes you just want like
the movie to be about more than
like
that.
So like good production design is like a fine feast, right? Fine to like whatever fucking meal, right? Sometimes I just want meatloaf and mashed potatoes. How about that? And then that's what Lamb feels like. Meatloaf and mashed potato, like fucking like your mom would make, you know?
It felt so like I think it's kind of a fable, the way it's told. So like it feels like a children's book or something. And usually Del Toro also loves that genre of like supernatural fantasy fable fairy tale type movie. But Del Toro, I didn't have you always told me you thought Del Toro was overrated, and I'd be like, what?
Del Toro's overrated.
This movie or that.
I mean,
movie.
like when I show you the pantheon of other directors and everything that has like ever been made before. Come on.
And then I was like, like unfortunately, like Pan's Labyrinth and all that stuff, it doesn't like make it in like my top 10 because of the reasons that you think he's overrated. That like the production design is amazing. It's always like cool. It's always fantastical. It's always a feat. It's always just like fascinating to see from the mind of Del Toro. But sometimes it's a little much.
If there's a hyper obsession to it, where then I feel like the priorities of Lamb were the people and the characters.
The story, Whereas like sometimes I feel production design, this is a big criticism of mine for a lot of sci-fi movies, because I don't like sci-fi, the genre, usually.
You don't like sci-fi. I love sci-fi. I don't like fantasy.
I like fantasy. And I can, like, when I have a problem with sci-fi movies, it's because, like, the world is more important than the characters and the story.
And the drama.
Which makes it really, it just makes me go like, oh, looks like you were really flexing with that character design or that makeup or whatever. And that's all I can see when I'm watching the movie sometimes. And I'm like, oh, you're just trying to do the most you can do for the design. But like, who cares about the design if the story of the movie is really good or the characters are really good or whatever? And this is, we're talking about like commercial movies here. I'm not talking about like, the experimental stuff. But like, if for me, that's why I can stand to watch a lot of indie movies, because they don't have a budget. They don't have like
a team of artists to create like the craziest looking lamb thing.
Yeah, but if you can make it about the main characters or the story really good, I don't care. I don't care that your budget's like non-existent or whatever.
Yeah, and like having left that movie, I was like really riding the high off of it, we were like just talking about it for like hours and hours, and it really stuck with us. Like I was just mulling over that movie the whole time. So and then it's time to watch No Time to Die, which is the latest James Bond movie, and which is sort of a long time coming for us.
Yeah.
It was really annoying because in like the first 30 episodes of this podcast, we watched every single James Bond movie except for Octopussy and View to a Kill because we couldn't handle any more Roger Moore. I'm sure a lot of you Bond fans will forgive us. I mean, come on. Like, how much... Because we were watching this in succession, too, like in chronological order.
Yeah.
So, like, to have watched that many Roger Moore Bonds in a row, I mean, come on.
But I need a different... something different.
Like, please. So we couldn't make it past the last week, but we watched every single one. Yes. Oh, and we didn't watch the unofficial one with Sean Connery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't watch that one. But we watched every single one in preparation for that premiere that holiday season.
Like over a year ago.
Yeah. So now that this movie has come out, it's a long time coming. I'm at the point where I don't care anymore, but like I just wanted to like hang out with friends and watch what is supposed to be like, I hope, a fun, like, action-packed movie where I can just like relax and laugh at all the Bond tropes that you and I have come to really understand. And the movie happens, and immediately we're like, okay, Her Majesty's Secret Service, right there.
Yeah.
Or the opening.
Yeah.
And then
Dr. No.
Dr. No. Lots and lots of Dr. No.
Yeah.
Lots of like like things that start in Dr. No.
Yeah.
End with this.
Yeah. Or things that start with Her Majesty's, ends with Her Majesty's.
Yeah. So by the end of this movie, if you've watched every single Bond movie, you can surmise that it's like book ending, like No Time to Die is book ending Dr. No with the ending of Her Majesty's Secret Service, but the opposite of what happened.
Yeah, basically.
And that is this movie.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking forgettable, and it's so like not Bond anymore.
Yeah.
It's like Fast and the Furious by the end of it.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the fucking movie, I was like, oh, what? Is fucking Charlie Puth gonna come out with a song? Like what? Fucking what? Like, this is fucking ridiculous. And then you and I kept complaining, like, this isn't fucking Bond, man.
Yeah, for some reason.
In the beginning of the movie, it was kind of Bond.
Yeah.
And then you see this Bond character, this iteration of Bond, which there have been many. This iteration of Bond slowly turned into Daniel Craig the Man.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, I guess. But I don't give a shit about Daniel Craig the Man. I give a shit about the mythical being that is James Bond.
I think for us who like literally we watch so many Bond movies.
You really didn't give a shit about Bond at first. In fact, you really don't like these reckless, blunt Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones type characters.
Yeah, I actually I don't know.
The people in the universities would call them toxic male characters.
I guess, but like I had a problem with the toxic male character. For a really long time, not because he's a toxic... Well, actually, maybe it is because he's a toxic male. But
I think that's why.
I don't know why. But, like, the way I grew up and the way you grew up, I just don't like those types of characters. I don't, as a female... I don't feel attraction, and I don't feel like...
It's very hard for a dude not to think James Bond or Indiana Jones is fucking cool, man.
Yeah, but for a woman, I just don't care.
Yeah.
So like for anyone who needs someone to say that like, oh, like, you know, the Harrison Ford characters, but like that's me. When we first watched Star Wars, I had a really big problem with Han Solo, and like it's just, I don't know, as a non-Star Wars fan, like it's probably like blasphemous to say, but like I just didn't care. So like going into, because before watching all the Bond movies, literally all of them. Also,
before you criticize us, make sure you watch all of the Bond movies, because I'm sure a lot of you have like rosy glasses with a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because so my favorite Bond is Pierce Brosnan, simply because he's like, I was raised with him. He was like the guy. And then I had rosy color, like, so GoldenEye holds up.
Yes.
It's definitely bottom top 5.
Yes.
But like it kind of holds up. But then like everything after awful. It was so bad. But then, like, for some reason, I would tell you, oh, this is good. This is like when this happens, and then he controls it with his whatever. And I was like, oh, that's actually not as cool as I remembered it to be. So, fucking relax, okay, and then watch all of the Bond movies if you really want to get on our level.
Yeah. I didn't know anything really about Bond. I had my only introduction to Bond was I was part of this travel abroad trip thing in school. So we went to London, and then we had to show our final projects to a lot of these like notable people, designers, people in London. So like that's where I met Sir Paul Smith, and a bunch of really like interesting British art houses basically. So I forget the name of the studio that did the titles for Skyfall. So
Motion graphics place.
Yeah. So that, and then we sat and we watched the opening to Skyfall, and I was like, I should have been more starstruck and knew who these people were, but because I didn't, I had no knowledge of like what Bond was even. So like I felt like my department chair, all expected me to be like, oh my god, I just met the people who did the motion graphics for Skyfall. I did not care. I was like, I mean, I guess that's cool, I guess. But then like you started me off from the very first Bond,
which I actually haven't seen. In my history with Bond is I grew up with Pierce Brosnan when they changed into Daniel Craig. I was one of those no blonde Bond people. Like, man, I hope there are some. That was a fucking thing. People hated Daniel Craig because he was blonde. Like, that is such like old news though. Like, man, I remember when that was going all throughout Entertainment Tonight. Like, oh, Bond is blonde, and I was like, boo. Pierce Brosnan was the guy. And then so I didn't watch Casino Royale in theaters, but then I saw Casino Royale at a friend's, my cousin's party. It was just playing in the background, and I was just like awestruck with like what they were doing with the characters. So I would watch. I watched the Pierce Brosnan ones, and then Blockbuster I rented a lot of the Roger Moore ones, and like one of the Timothy Dalton ones, and that was my only introduction to Bond. And then I obviously watched all the movies until Skyfall, and then so I watched Skyfall in theaters, and I really appreciated it for what it was, but it was a completely different experience having watched all of the Bond movies and watching Skyfall. But starting from the beginning, I was like, okay, never watched the Sean Connery one. Let's see where this all starts. And then we watched Dr. No.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, this is pretty good.
They set the bar way too high.
Yeah, they set the bar way too high. And then I think what's next? From Russia with Love.
Yeah,
I don't.
pretty good too,
That's
but,
okay.
like, yeah.
There's something about Dr. No that I'm like, that was a little bit more of an enjoyable experience. I think. I think the whole, you either buy the whole relationship with that lady in From Russia with Love, or you don't.
Yeah.
And then, and like, I didn't like the chemistry and whatever. I was just like, whatever about it. But then, like, everything after that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Like for Sean Connery, there hasn't been like those two, and then no, it's no good.
Yeah.
And then I think, I don't know, I think there are like two more after that, and then Her Majesty's Secret Service. Mm-hmm. Very interesting Bond. So in Blockbuster, I'm sure a lot of people would remember this. For me, it wasn't even Blockbuster; it was Hollywood Video. You would go to the action section, and obviously, since there's a billion Bond movies, you see the cover, the MGM VHS cover or Blu-ray or DVD cover, and then you'd see all the different Bond faces, and you see George Lazenby, and you're like, that guy's not James Bond. And that one was always there, and out of all the ones, that was the one I wouldn't even like read the back cover, like what it was about. Like I didn't care.
You're like, you just knew.
Yeah, I was like,
Bond.
no, you're not Bond. But that is a really interesting Bond movie, man. Yeah. What do you think about that one? First of all, what do you think about Sean Connery, and then that one movie? What do you think about Sean Connery first?
Oh, he's fine. I finally know all the inside jokes about, you know, everyone when they think of Bond, they talk like Sean Connery. Like shaken, not stirred.
Okay.
And like all the stuff. And so I'm like, oh, I finally have an understanding of a certain aspect of pop culture that I didn't know about.
That was open to you.
Yeah. Until the age of 26 27 when I watched it.
Try to explain why you think Her Majesty's Secret Service is a special movie, and why you think it's this Bond movie that every director has always tried to like match.
Because when I'm sure every single director, when they get handed a Bond movie, they go back to the very first one and then do exactly what we did, as a marathon through it. As if you're a good director, that's probably what you should do.
You do your research,
yeah,
right?
You do your research. So even if you've grew up with them, whatever, that's probably just something you should do. And when we did that, it's very fascinating, all the things you start to pick up on. And I started falling in love with the Bond character, even though, like, my preconceptions going in was, like, everything I would read in the media. Oh, he's, like, a misogynist, all this stuff. And I just didn't really get, like, the whole cool, suave spy genre, really, until I watched it. And so I watched it, and you fall in love with certain characteristics. You love Q, you love Moneypenny and M, and you wait for those lines in the movie, just like Fast and Furious and Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah, you always like Bond's advancements to like Moneypenny.
Yes.
And Q going, "Don't touch that."
Yeah, don't touch that, Bond.
Yeah, come on.
00.
Yeah.
And you wait for like when and how do they say shaken, not stirred, and when you see that Aston Martin, is that the brand of car? Yeah. And when like there's there's going to be like these big set pieces, and how's the henchman gonna be? Where's Felix Leiter gonna come up?
Right.
Is the Bond girl good, or is there no chemistry? Like you start like. As a franchise lover, I can see how like you just like live for those moments sometimes. Like they're just
like cheap. How do they live up to those moments? Yeah.
And when like the thing is though, because it's such a like they had their 50th anniversary during Skyfall. It's such a long franchise that like once you get to a certain like 10th movie in, or I don't even know how many movies we watched, you get very like it's the same thing over and over and over again, and then you want something different, which I didn't like Her Majesty's when I first saw it because it was so different, for so many reasons. A lot of it is different, but especially when like you see Bond actually fall in love and get married. And I was like, wait,
what
is going on?
What?
Since when?
So 4 movies in, like Bond doesn't do any of that.
Yeah.
And then Bond does some weird shit in Her Majesty's that's just like, and then it has this it has a very interesting ending that like no other Bond has had since probably Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And I think like there's something about that movie where like when you first watch it you dismiss it, but then you watch the Roger Moore ones, and then you watch like, you know, some of the bad Pierce Brosnan ones, and you're like, oh my god, actually this movie is special in the bunch.
No, and especially like, and when you say like, why do you think every single director apes that movie to death, especially like all the recent ones,
not even in James Bond, like in Tenet and in Inception.
In Tenet and Inception, and like that movie, Her Majesty's, influences every single snow ski heist scene that comes after it.
It's kind of like you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know.
So like in any kind of heist movie, there's usually a snow bunker scene, and
there's
if
a downhill action skiing adventure.
It's that scene. It's like how we were talking about a lot of Bond villains and horror movie villains in general. After Anthony Hopkins in
Silence
of the Lambs, like you can't not at least think about him when you think about a villain monologue.
Yeah.
And so like everyone, whether they like it or not, they kind of have to reference Her Majesty's for that reason alone. But then like for some reason, like everyone has come to the same conclusion that it wasn't liked at the time, I assume because it's so different and trying to do a lot of things Bond typically is not known for.
Very similar to the No Time to Die movie.
Yeah. People remember it for that because it was just formulaic all the way up until that point. I have been listening to Dear Reader, the unauthorized biography of Kim Jong-il as told to Michael Malice. It is 100% true and amazing. If you would like to listen to this book or any other book of your choice, head over to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast for a free trial of Audible, where you will get one free audiobook. That's audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast. And I think after watching that movie, we then watched the rest of the franchise.
So what do you think of, real quickly, what do you think of the Roger Moore movies, starting with Live and Let Die? Live and Let Die I thought was good, but it wasn't very good in the context of everything. My God.
I wanted to like Roger Moore because everyone hates him.
He set out to be like, I will find something to like about this
I
Bond.
was like, come on, man, maybe
anything redeeming about... I think the best part of Roger Moore isn't even Roger Moore. I think it's Jaws. And that's it. Yeah. It's not even him.
I don't
Jaws
like
is pretty
him.
cool.
I don't like him.
They should bring Jaws back.
It was just
pretty cool.
Weird. I think maybe that's why people had like weird things about Daniel Craig being blonde.
Yeah, maybe. It was like bad luck.
Yeah.
It's like Bond should never be blonde ever again because...
And
then Timothy Dalton, which there was one that was not very good, but there was one I thought was super memorable.
Yeah.
Where like they were like taking apart a plane in midair, and there were like crocodiles and young Benicio del Toro.
Oh yeah. I really like Timothy Dalton. I think he's my favorite Bond.
I think objectively he's like, I don't know what like when you read at least the description of like how they describe Bond in the books. Like I would imagine somebody like him, like someone leaner, someone a little like aggressive, but then has like a sensitive side.
Yeah, I like that part of him. That like, I think all the previous Bonds were very one note until Timothy Dalton. I loved his acting the most. Oh, yeah, and then you told me he was a thespian, and I was like, makes sense.
He's a theater guy.
All the best actors are thespians, apparently, and yeah. I thought he was great. I liked him the most.
And then Pierce Brosnan, starting with GoldenEye. No, not a fan.
Because I'm actually a big fan of the Bourne movies.
Oh,
yeah.
I guess.
And then yeah.
Well, okay, but there's one thing about that era that was special.
What?
M.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You like M?
Yeah.
That
she's
era.
The best. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
it turned Moneypenny into a joke though.
Yeah. Talk about like
Moneypenny was useless. She's useless. She was always kind of useless, but like they like made it a joke. She was
yeah.
There was like that scene where she was like making love to James Bond in like a virtual reality thing. Remember?
Yeah. Oh my
ridiculous.
God.
This is so cringe. I was like, oh my God. Everyone needs to watch that era of Bond again because it's something else, man. That thing is ridiculous.
Yeah, 2000s movies are not 90s 2000 movies.
And then the Halle Berry one, where they basically threw the kitchen sink.
Yeah, just
it's like everything.
All the Bonds in one movie.
Let's have lasers.
Let's do everything.
Let's do everything that's ever been done in a Bond movie in one movie.
Wouldn't that be neat?
And then when you finally arrive to Casino Royale, what do you think?
I thought, oh, interesting. That's really interesting that, like, they're trying to do the, like, Marvel Cinematic Universe through storyline type thing.
Because, like, most of the Bond movies have, like, a slight, like, a continuity thing.
Yeah, callbacks to, like, Felix Leiter was introduced, and then he would show up again.
Every so often.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, it seemed like Casino Royale was like a return to form and trying to bring continuity into the franchise.
And seriousness in a way.
Yeah.
Like, less action, more drama.
Less ridiculous one-liners, more like, you know, Tank Bond.
Yeah.
aggressive tank
Gritty.
Bond, gritty
era
Bond.
of gritty now.
Yeah, we're
and
gritty.
realism.
Make it real.
So yeah, I think my favorite Bond movie of all time is probably Skyfall. And partly because like it just did all the best things Bond movies should do, and it just did them very well.
Yeah, man. I think like the having watched Skyfall the first time and having freaked out, like, oh, I mean, come on, it's been, surely if you watched it, like the reveal of Moneypenny, I was like, yeah, that's so cool. But then like having really watched it, at least talking about the ending, so because like I think the ending is like a perfect example of what they were trying to do the entire movie. They're trying to make the fans like, it was a love letter to the fans.
Yes.
So what I didn't understand about the ending was like they were copying the set design also of Dr. No, of where like M lives, because usually M in Lady M, the old, the 90s M, was like, just would roam around MI6, but she never really had like the room. She kind of did, but it didn't look like the room of yore, the one that like what's his name, Sean Connery was in. But like the craziest part was not only was there the Moneypenny reveal, the set of OG, Ralph Fiennes' Mallory M was like almost exactly like the original, with the door with the cushion on it. It's insane. And it's just like there's little details like that. Like if you've watched every single Bond movie, it's also like cinematography is by the Deacons. By the Deke.
It's
so
probably
good.
the most beautiful.
It's the most beautiful Bond movie ever. It's awesome. But I think it was just everything they tried to do to make the character and the people who love this character just like celebrate this character. 50 years. 50 years. And then Spectre.
Which was fine, I guess. I mean, I barely remember it. That's how like not memorable it was.
And then Spectre kind of was supposed to be the last movie for Daniel Craig. It was supposed to be. And Daniel Craig like, had a whole fit, was really angry, or was something about like just not pleased with, I forgot, there was like some sort, remember?
Yeah, I remember there's some drama.
There's some drama, there's some drama. And then I was like, oh, that must be it. And I guess there's not going to be another Bond movie for a while. And then you hear in the news, in the movie news later, that like, oh, Daniel Craig's going to do another one. And you're like, okay, where is this going to go? And where does this go?
It does the exact same thing as Her Majesty's, where like it's different. It's where Skyfall is like a love letter to all Bond fans should love Skyfall, while also being a great introduction for people who don't know. Like it's still a good movie. That's like paint by numbers Bond. If like for whatever reason you don't like the formula, then like No Time to Die is like trying to do what like Her Majesty's did, but not completely. Like they're still doing things that I feel like Bond fans would love. They're like fan servicey things for Bond movies. So it's not going off the rails completely, but it's kind of like Batman killing a person. It's doing that.
It's like, oh, that doesn't happen to Bond.
Yeah. Kind of like in Her Majesty's.
Right.
And when we say like it ends up being like a Fast and Furious movie, for real.
Like for real.
I was reminded of that during the movie. I was like,
the lighting and stuff.
Yeah, everything is very like family. It's very much that by the end. And I'm just like, what? by the end, I won't spoil it, but I came out going like, for some reason, my brain is not allowing me to accept this is part of canon. Like I feel like this is a weird off story that like it's like a fan fiction. Yeah, it's like fan fiction. Bond fan fiction. What if? But I was just like, my brain was like, that to me wasn't really a Bond movie. It was more similar to a Mission Impossible Fast and Furious movie to me. So I was like, that was weird. That was really weird.
And we were kind of screwed up for the next day, because we were just like, we had this feeling like we wanted to have a good time, But you
Yeah.
know that feeling where you like, oh, yeah, like you're super stimulated, eat lots of popcorn, and then after you don't feel so good.
Yeah.
It was like that, but then with the movies.
Because like at the end of the day, what I think about it is like you should go watch it. It's a fun movie. It's a fine movie. It's a fairly decent Hollywood blockbuster movie. There's no major issues I have with it. I would give it like, I don't know, a B.
Yeah, okay. If I were to rank all of the Daniel Craigs, Skyfall's number 1, Casino Royale's number 2, number 3 is probably this movie, number 4 is Spectre, and number 5 is Quantum of Solace. There. So it's like a middle. It's in the middle. Yeah.
So I think it's a good, decent movie. But then I couldn't shake the feeling of like, but why don't I like it? Like there's something very like weird that I feel like I don't like it, but I can't like legitimately say why. And then I just realized like, oh, because to me it's not Bond. It really does feel like, well, you kind of start with Bond at the beginning, but then it just becomes a movie about Daniel Craig. And then I was kind of like, it sucks to say, but because it is a good movie, but I just personally didn't like it as a Bond fan, a new Bond fan, I guess.
We're noticing a trend where a lot of the characters we were raised with, let's say Captain America, and a lot of other characters are doing ridiculous that like they would never do. And like, okay, fine. You give me a good explanation as to why this is happening. The explanation is never good enough, or at least unsatisfying to me.
It just feels like you just did it just to be contrarian. You just did it to be different. And that's sometimes I think that's why like a lot of directors always reference Her Majesty's in this like our childhood till now type of Bond movies. It's like everyone wants like their stamp, just like Her Majesty's was.
Like, did something to
so
Bond.
What they're saying, I think ego-wise, is just like, I want my stamp. Like I want to be kind of contrarian. I want to have those moments where like Bond does something that like shocks you.
I made him do that.
Yeah, I did that to the whole history of Bond, and I feel like that's what No Time to Die kind of was saying. Like there's so much pressure on it, you know. Like I feel like they were trying to do a lot. They were trying to make like Daniel Craig's character go out with a bang. They wanted like in the history of Bond, like 20 years from now, if there are still Bond movies, there
will always be Bond movies. There is no if. There will always be Bond movies.
See.
There will always be Bond movies.
As long as MGM
well, yeah, I mean,
stays alive.
not looking so good. But there was like a huge lull between Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig. We all thought that wasn't going to happen again. We all thought Bond was extinct. Bond's never going to be extinct.
And like the thing is, I thought like, man, there wasn't really like a big farewell for any of the Bonds. You know, when they transition, they almost just don't really mention. The reason why they don't typically do that is because Bond is almost kind of like a mythical character.
Right.
Like, you don't know, like, sometimes, like, the mythology, the story arc, like, it didn't start, like, Bond isn't, like, 1,000 years old. He's, like, when you go from one movie to the next movie, you don't know where this is in Bond's life. It's just like life and times of a mission. That once upon a time.
Oh, the world's at risk again, and Bond has to prevent it from exploding or whatever.
But ever since like they tried to do the continuity thing with Daniel Craig's Bond, now it's like it almost feels definitive. You know, like this movie, what happens in this movie feels like this is like bookends. Like this is Bond at the beginning, this is Bond at the end. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all, because what if I don't agree with certain choices that you made Bond do, and you make Bond do very like a lot of really
questionable.
Yeah, like would Bond really do that? And like, because like there's so many, like all of Roger Moore's Bonds I think about as like that was a cool like side, like alternate universe A Bond does that, and but like Bond in the other universes are not like that. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that's how I kind of think of it too. And and I just been noticing this trend because I heard, I mean, like I think it happened with Star Wars. Yes, like just everyone I know who has grown up with Star Wars feels that way about Luke in the second movie. They're like, oh, that's not canon. That's not. They're just trying their best to ignore that movie, even though there are a lot of worse movies in the franchise.
Honestly. Come on, it's not the worst. It's not the worst, but it's the one where like I feel like this Bond movie could be pretty divisive.
Yeah.
With some Bond fans who are like, Bond doesn't do that.
Yeah. So like we noticed that in that franchise.
Oh, Captain America.
In Captain America, where like in
the
comics they have him basically take a big fat shit on America, which I think to all the OG Captain America fans are like, I know what you're doing at this point. Like, you're just trying to be cute. You're trying to like take this thing that I love and be like, oh, what if they say this thing that's very contrarian to who and what they are. And then they did it with Ghostbusters,
right? When
they tried to be like an all-female Ghostbusters cast. They did it with Batman.
But not only do that with the cast, like totally disregard, you know, everything that's come before it.
They basically did that with the Avengers.
The original idea of an Avengers movie, the quintessential Avengers movie, is the first one.
Yes.
When you break it apart and you make the characters do something like they're just the complete opposite of what you'd imagine them to be, you get Endgame.
Yes.
That's what you get.
Yes. So they took like basically every single member of the OG Avengers and they're like, what if we just made them opposite?
Oh, so like the Hulk is just like a brainiac dude who doesn't really Hulk out anymore.
Yeah.
And Thor and beard belly doesn't give a looks like shit, you know?
Iron Man becomes the responsible dude. Meanwhile, Captain America's like, America, I'm going rogue. And it's like, okay, I see what you did there. You didn't, pull one over my eyes. But then I start thinking about all this. Because I kept talking to you about No Time to Die, even though you didn't want to talk about it anymore because it made you angry.
Yeah.
But I was just like, why do I dislike this so much? And I realized this trend, and I didn't know what to call it. That I was like, oh, they're like deconstructing these characters people know and love, these franchise characters. And we were talking about how oh wow, look, they've done it with literally everything that they've rebooted, or it's just the deconstruction of the even an archetype is a thing in the past decade. And we were thinking at least I was thinking that these movies, typically when you do that, when you deconstruct a character, when you do something different just to do it, you be contrarian just to do it, a lot of the times those movies in the past decade didn't hold up. I thought about okay, we're starting a new decade. What kind of was what the 2010s represented? And you think about that in movies. What are the movies that represent?
Now, you can only figure that out once we're away from the 2010s.
Yeah.
And really look at it.
And of all the movies that I thought really stood out in every genre or whatever, I would think none of them are movies like this. None of them are typically the movies where you were trying to deconstruct something, do the opposite of whatever that thing was. They're typically the classic stories and structure and hero's journey type stuff that are very paint by numbers but just done very, very well. And I thought man, postmodernism has kind of ruined movies.
What makes you an authority in talking about postmodernism, Janet Chan? So
I thought about this. We were literally trained in postmodernism. The way
we had a postmodernism class.
Our education was postmodernism.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
How we were taught
to
research is basically kind of postmodernism.
Huh. We are literally the same way BLM are trained Marxists, we're trained postmodernists.
Huh.
We can see it from we know what it is. We this is our.
So when I need to design a spacecraft, I would do all the research.
Yes.
deconstruct everything I like about each one,
Yes.
and then make my own.
Yes.
And there you go.
And you go, who are you to tell me this isn't a spaceship?
Aha.
So yeah, literally we are, I guess I would say we are trained postmodernists. That is hilarious. But like, so leaving art school, I didn't realize postmodernism represented more than an art movement.
Or it could even manifest itself anywhere other than art. You think like, oh, Duchamp, and this is a toilet.
Yes.
Okay, you think like, how could that possibly bleed into like pop culture, movies, into government? How?
Yeah,
into
science.
like science.
Academia. And yeah, I did not know until I started hearing like other academics, journalists, and random people who I thought were like, are they talking about the art movement? Like, I don't understand. Why are they like using the word postmodernism?
Oh yes, please explain. There's probably lots of people
Yes.
lost right now.
So in college, you're going to learn, if you're going to art school, you're going to learn about the different movements in art history. You'll learn about like the Renaissance. You'll learn about Impressionism. You'll learn about all like abstractism, whatever it's called. All the way
Cubism and all,
Cubism,
yeah, all
there
that
you
stuff.
go.
Yeah. Did you even go to art school?
I don't, vocabulary is not my strong suit.
Okay.
And then you'll learn all the way up until now, basically modernism and postmodernism. And I always thought of it as an art movement where like basically to dumb down art history to like one or two sentences, it's basically we were at this point where we were trying to achieve realism because we drew with sticks and we didn't know how to really draw, and we wanted to take it to its heights. And from there, it went from realism to like, okay, we've done that for a really long time now, I'm bored, let's try to do something else, and going backwards, basically. When you learn all of this, you get to now, just to know that like this is the era that we're in. And postmodernist thinking is basically like the question, what is art? Because we've taken art to its maximum degree of like hyperrealism, and now we're like deconstructing it, turning it into like abstract art, to like the Jackson Pollocks of the world. Now we're in postmodernism, and it's like, okay, where do we go from here? How do we progress from here? So you go back to the beginning and you ask yourself, what is art? What can art be? Does art necessarily mean that you have to be technically proficient? You have to know perspective, you have to know color theory, you have to be able to paint as realistically as possible? Or can art be this? Or can art be that?
Can it be a bunch of cubes? Can it be a bunch of stipples? Can it be like all this stuff?
And can that be considered art? And when you
then they take it even further and go like, oh, this little urinal, that's art.
Yeah, a piece of is art. Like a literal toilet, like that. So you gave rise to like the Dadaists and these people who like really take it to the nth degree, where like you start discovering performance art is basically postmodernism.
Yoko Ono stuff.
Yes.
Yes, the Yoko Ono stuff.
And I always thought of it as just like an art movement, and then after becoming an adult and learning about politics and philosophy and all these different things and like you start getting interested in as an adult, I discovered that, it seems like, once again, the importance of artists and how artists dictate culture has like went all over most people's minds, and people just thought that postmodernism exists in academia. And when I think, like, I feel like the artists probably brought it to academia. Because if we were the ones who define culture, we're the ones at fault for allowing postmodernism to infect everything. And I realized that.
So how are people? So how are we? People are probably. How are you guys making the leap of like this art movement And how is this, like, what do you mean? How is this in Hollywood?
So I realized that with all these characters, they're doing that in a story structure sense. They're doing that in like they're going like, what if all of Ghostbusters was female? Just because they can, or sometimes to prove a point or whatever, or to be like the epitome of being contrarian is to be like super postmodernist. You're like, what if this? Why? Because I can.
Right.
But also like, why not, like intellectually could say this or that, like that. I don't mind all of this, because at first when all this was happening, when like you start wonder, like going like, oh yeah, what if Ben Affleck is Batman, what if this, what if that is turned in is like role gender bent, and like you make these characters female or male or whatever. But
what's wrong with Ben Affleck being Batman? Sorry, that just stuck out. Like, what if you made Ben Affleck into Batman? That's not really a good example.
I guess his choice to do what he did.
Oh, to blow people up. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But like I think we all think it's fun at first. It's like, oh yeah, that's cute. That's a neat idea. That's like different.
I honestly thought like Last Jedi was kind of cute for that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at all these tired ass Star Wars movies. Let's do something weird with one.
Yeah.
And then in retrospect, I'm like, well, I guess that was just an experiment in being weird.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it's definitely not gonna be remembered.
Yeah, and I think,
God, imagine it becomes like the Her Majesties of Star Wars.
Oh god.
And like 28 years later,
I would have been like, I called it. I called it. But so like I don't actually have a problem with postmodernism and being like, what if, why don't we try this, why don't we try that, because I think it is different and new and kind of fun sometimes. But I just my biggest problem with it is that it doesn't hold the test of time. Like because I think it's putting that like almost gimmicky thing in the forefront and not the story
or the character
as the most important thing. I think the best example that most people would probably know the reference to is like, yeah, take a look at Avengers, the movie, and then take a look at what happened during Endgame. Like, what the structure of Avengers is like, it's everything these characters were. It's like a classic comic book movie. It in a way, it's very predictable in that it's like paint by numbers, a certain kind of movie. And then you look at Endgame and you're like taking those characters and making them the exact opposite of who they're supposed to be. And then it's a very unconventional story. Maybe because it has to be span 2 movies, they made the structure a little bit different. It's not paint by numbers hero's journey, not really. And so you take that, and in my opinion, if you look at, like, let's say like this whole franchise ended today, and you see that as the bookends, and like that as the story. Of all the movies, which ones will hold up the most in 10 years, 20 years? I really doubt it'll be the Endgame. I mean, as you can see, if you're aware of audience, fan reception to a lot of these franchises where like people do the postmodernism thing. At first it was cute. At first people kind of were like, oh, that's neat, I guess. But slowly but surely, with like Ben Affleck's Batman, with like Avengers Endgame, and like at this point for me,
like the
Bond
rest
movie,
of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just like a deconstruction of everything.
Yeah.
Now let's bring everything into it. Everything is just like everything now.
it gets a little bit like tired, and a little bit like you're writing yourself, and you're doing, in my opinion, a disservice to like the art form if like you're not, how do I say this? I feel like you're making a movie that people don't want to see anymore. And I think the only way for Hollywood to kind of like appeal to people now is to make pure escapism, but specifically like almost paint by numbers hero's journey type stories. because like all this deconstruction, it's getting to a point where like movies are getting ridiculous, and they're getting like I don't think people want to necessarily just see like Bond become not Bond. You know, I feel like I crave classic Bond the way like Skyfall was. I think people, they're getting upset at like He-Man and She-Ra and all this stuff, that I would make a prediction that because they are going back to this like more predictable structure, not trying to deconstruct things that have always worked, I think those are the movies that are going to be successful. Those are the things that I think people want to see. And one hint of that is like the new Ghostbusters movie. I saw it and I was like, it's really interesting. It looks like what a Ghostbusters reboot should be. I would bet that this movie will probably do pretty well in theaters once it comes out. Because of that, like I want to see if my prediction comes true, that like people do really want this more like true to form, less deconstruction, less postmodernism,
more Skyfall approach, not No Time to Die approach.
Yeah, I think people want that. I would predict that.
Also, when we were watching No Time to Die, it was me, you, and a couple of friends, and my brother, and I think my brother was the only Zoomer in the audience until like some Cinemark at 7:00.
Yeah,
it's just common movie hour time, just a bunch of us olds.
Yes.
So, and it's just
olds
like
as in like millennials.
Yeah,
a bunch of millennials are in there.
Yeah, and it's just like makes me wonder, like, oh man, like do young people even go to the movie theaters? Because like we've been going to the movie theaters a lot. Not a lot of young people. I think the theater with the most amount of youth was when we saw Mugen Train.
Yes, actually.
Yeah.
When we went to the theater, we were like, oh, where are the young people?
Yeah.
It's like the nighttime showing. Like, sure, no one wants to go see movies right now, but like, where are the young people? And then I thought about it. We had recently come back from a trip from Lake Arrowhead. There were a lot of young people there.
A lot of youngs, a lot of college sweaters, a lot of like just young people hanging around.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, interesting.
There's also a lot of that age demographic in Palm Springs too, remember?
Yeah. A lot of the Zoomers are out and about experiencing life, and they're not experiencing at the theaters. If we hadn't encouraged, like, basically set up this like movie date with friends and brother, they wouldn't have gone to see it like this. They wouldn't have. And you were having this conversation with your brother about how, hey, are you gonna watch Dune?
Oh yeah, because I was like, oh, you know, Zendaya and the Chalamet, all the actors that they're trying to appeal to your age demographic. I was like, what's Dune?
Yeah.
And I think the trailer before Dune, which was quite a cool trailer, before No Time to Die, was like his first exposure to the thing.
Yeah.
Still,
wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
He didn't see that trailer before?
No, I don't think so.
That's so interesting. So like we were having this
and like they're like really trying to push it, like, oh, it's the next Harry Potter. Yeah. It's the next Star Wars.
We were having this discussion at one of our favorite restaurants. This is a cafe, I guess. Yeah. And we were talking about, I was making a prediction because I was wondering, like, is Dune out? This was like a month ago, I think. We were like, is Dune out? Because we were like hearing that like it's out, but then it was only out internationally. So we were talking about it, and I was making a prediction that like I don't think it's gonna do well because the kids aren't going to go see it. And then you were like, what? How could that be? It has Zendaya. It has Timothée Chalamet. And then I was like, I don't think the kids know who Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet is.
I mean, they remember her from Spider-Man.
Yeah, but I felt like, is she a big enough draw for these Zoomers? And I was like, no, these Zoomers care more about Charlie D'Amelio like Charlie D'Amelio and Addison Rae probably are more famous in their eyes than Zendaya, sadly. And I just was like, oh, I genuinely, I think they're out experiencing things. I think they're clearly, like, we're wondering why, like, when we went to see Green Knight, it was playing at the same time as Shang-Chi, and we saw a lot of families take their families to go see Shang-Chi, but we did not actually see a bunch of Zoomers, a bunch of high school, college age Zoomers walking around with their friends to see Shang-Chi. And I was like, where are all the young people? They're outside in the mall. I see plenty of them, like, looking at each other.
Yeah, like, we went to the mall. What's the mall next to Sawtell? Century City Mall. There was, like, tons of young people around, but none of them were in the theater.
Yeah. They were just milling about, loitering, or whatever they do. And then we went to the theater, like, where are they? What are they what are they doing? And then, you know, you see the news on Lollapalooza, and, like, it's like a huge Zoomer crowd. And then we went to, like, Arrowhead, where there are a bunch of Zoomers everywhere. And once again, we go to see No Time to Die, and no Zoomers. And in fact, there's one Zoomer we know doesn't even know Dune is coming out, and has no interest in seeing it, even though it has everything a recipe for a good blockbuster should have to bring the young people, like the it people of the times, supposedly. Supposed to, like, bring out all the Zoomers, but I doubt that movie is going to do well. Sadly.
I'm sure we're going to enjoy it, but
yeah,
I just feel like people aren't going to see it.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know.
And then I realized, thinking about, well, okay, then what do the Zoomers want? And I thought, fundamentally, they don't want to watch movies because it doesn't give them social status anymore to say you watched that movie.
Oh, remember when we were young people lining up for Harry Potter movies?
Yeah.
We were taking pictures in our Harry Potter robe.
Yeah.
Or for us, like, remember falling in line for Halo 3, Halo Reach? Remember that? Mountain Dew, baby! Collect the stuff from the Mountain Dew, look at the codes. Man, those were good times. That was cool.
Yeah.
That was like a big social thing at school.
Yeah.
Like, it's like camaraderie thing.
Yeah. To the point where, like, because I was not cool and I was not really allowed to go watch movies because I didn't have money, everyone else would be talking about, like, the latest Iron Man, the latest Harry Potter movie, the latest Katniss Everdeen, whatever.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, and if you could not talk about those movies, you're outcasted like me. So like, it became a status symbol to be able to, like, oh, I watched it for everyone. I'm gonna spoil it.
Oh yeah, I
for
watched it
you.
on midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't spoil it for you. It's
Yeah.
like really awesome what happens to Harry Potter.
But that was kind of the status symbol of a millennial, to be able to do stuff like that. And, like, socially, if you wanted to be accepted, you had to, like, watch movies. You had to, like, I don't know, listen to the right music and watch the right movies. Whereas now, I was like, I don't actually think if you didn't know a movie or a TV show that you'd be looked at as uncool. I think you'd be gained so much social points if you went to Lollapalooza.
Yeah,
if you
like,
went to
who's the
Arrowhead.
cooler person? Well, I watched No Time to Die. Oh yeah, I went to Lollapalooza. It's like who gets? I'm just
For real though. For real. And I, like, as sad as it seemed, like, I was thinking about exactly that. If the kids want some kind of experience or thing that they can take photos of and show on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, that, like, I got to go here, I got to do this, I got to whatever, and that gives you more social points than before. You know what people would do? They would take photos in those photo op things during the midnight showing of the latest greatest Marvel movie. But, like, you post that on Instagram, no one's gonna care. You post a video of you at Lollapalooza, everyone's gonna be like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah. And I think that's just where we're going. Like, I think that's another really big difference between millennials and Gen Z. Like, we are growing up so differently. Like I got in trouble for staying at a midnight release of a Harry Potter book.
Man, oh god, the midnight releases for the books. I forgot about that. That was a thing too.
That was a thing.
That was a big thing. The news would show up. Look at all these children lining up for Goblet of Fire.
Now people line up for like Coachella or whatever tickets.
Yeah, I think, and what is this desire for young people to just escape it? I think they just want to like escape it all, you know? I'm sure, like, because I think what's happening, I'm not sure, you parents better watch out. Watch your kids right now. Your kids are doing sneaky shit because I see what they're doing. They're hanging out together at Airbnbs.
Yes.
They're like really hanging out, and who knows what sort of. I hope they're leaving room for Jesus.
Oh my god.
I never left room for Jesus.
Oh my god.
There are tons of young people, I think, crowded around inside a B&B that's kind of like not supposed to be for that capacity. Yeah. But like I think a bunch of kids are like kind of like on this like crazy like little let's fucking get away from mom and dad and school and all this bullshit. Let's like play house.
Yeah,
Airbnb,
the fact that you can do that. Could you imagine doing that when we're kids?
Actually, you're fucking right. I could have never done. Like, I'm just getting chills right now. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like to rent to get a hotel after prom to like that. That's like fucking a big deal. Like that's a lot of money and a fucking deal. But like getting an Airbnb is like sort of like Uber. It's like no big deal. It's ain't no thing.
Imagine Uber as a kid.
Man, imagine Uber as a kid. Do you have a car and do you have a place to stay?
Yeah. Do you somehow
now there's
have money?
Uber and now there's Airbnb.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, you kids are so lucky, man. Or maybe you're not. I don't know. Let's see how this affects you 10 years from now.
We were lucky that
there's like a whole new like
simpler.
boomer generation, like a whole new generation of kids come out because of this stupid Airbnb craze.
They'll make up for the millennials not having kids.
Oh, everything balances out. That's amazing. Guys, use protection. Come on, don't be a fucking idiot. Listen to Uncle Vincent. All right, don't be a fucking idiot.
Okay, Dad.
Okay, make sure you use a condor. Okay, fucking relax.
Gosh,
relax.
Dad.
Make me proud.
I don't think it's that they crave escapism. I genuinely believe people are a lot more selfish and basic than that, and I think they simply go where the social status is. And everyone wants to be an influencer. Everyone wants to be a YouTuber or TikToker or whatever. And even if you understand that no, that's not really what you want in life, everyone still LARPs that life. They fantasize about it a little bit, which is why everyone
vicariously through other people on TikTok or YouTube or something like that.
And
Instagram.
If now, instead of taking photos with your friends, you're at the midnight showing of, I don't know, a Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie or whatever, instead that makes you seem like, oh, I guess kind of, but like if the maximum social points is you going to an Airbnb in the woods with a bunch of your friends and you have like Instagram, TikTok posts for days and you get likes, you get followers, you get other people go, oh, that's so cool. Like that's what people used to say when you're like, oh, that's so cool, you went to like Comic-Con or something, or you went to the midnight show and I couldn't go, my parents didn't let me, or whatever. Like that's so like the what gives you status nowadays has changed. I think it's just simply that.
Maybe. It's like you go to the movie theaters because that's the only place to go.
Yeah. Now you can go anywhere.
Man, I'm just gonna say that right now. Man, I was thinking while I was taking a pee that like, man, like these kids, like I wasn't able to do any of that stuff. Like I think going to the movies was the most maximum amount of social interaction you could get with a bunch of your friends.
Yeah.
And now you could just like literally pick anywhere. Yeah. Anywhere.
You can go anywhere. You don't have a car? That's fine.
Some dude will drive you there.
Yeah. Like people have so much more options for entertainment now in the world, not just on the screen, in the world, that like I'm not sure if they're gonna go out to see a movie, or they're gonna go out and like travel or do whatever. So my overall point, I guess, is I feel like there's a thing to take for those in Hollywood like a takeaway from understanding all this, and there's a takeaway as someone who's like an independent content creator. For those in Hollywood, I believe that one of the people who are still here, the Janets and Vincents of the world, who are still here to watch your movies, we crave escapism, hero's journey.
Yeah,
type
when we
stuff.
don't have the time to travel somewhere
Yeah.
and escape the shit of life, take me somewhere.
Yeah.
That's fun and awesome.
Just a good time, not trying to deconstruct anything, not trying to say anything, not trying to like
Don't even try to impress me with like, you know.
your weird turning it on its head thing. Like what at most I think, oh, that's cute. But you don't want me to think, oh, that's cute about you want me to take your movie seriously and for me to be like, oh, that was amazing. You don't want me to be like, oh, that's cute, I guess. Cool gimmick. Like that's basically my reaction at this point. And I feel like but Hollywood, if Hollywood is to succeed, if they don't just collapse in on themselves, I feel like they need to create and serve the people that they already have, because clearly Gen Z, not the people that you already have. They're lost to you. I think, in my opinion, I think they're lost to you. I think they just don't even care about movies, and you're trying to gain an audience that's much more difficult than retaining an audience that already loves you. And you should just keep serving the people who already love you the thing that they really, really want, because who knows, maybe that's like the best way to get like the new Zoomers to be interested in your stuff. And then for the YouTubers and the content creators, I think content creators have an advantage over Hollywood. Hollywood has to tell these very narrative stories. They have to spend so much money to do all this stuff.
And by the way, we're all fighting for the attention of the same people, by the way. So this is a competition for people's attention.
Yeah. And I think if these young people, they're not at the movie theaters, they're all about social standing, they're all about escapism, and like if taking a photo of like, you know, a movie thing or whatever doesn't do it anymore, and like going out to do things and to witness other people do things, and then to get like that weird voyeurism, jealousy, whatever parasocial relationship that you have with YouTubers and content creators. I think content creators are just at an advantage because you can bring experiences to people who maybe, unfortunately, can't go and do the thing and get the social standing. For some reason, the people who also want the social standing want to watch other people do the thing as well and just like live through them or whatever. And I think that's an advantage in 2020s. Now that I genuinely believe in the 2020s, we are moving away from postmodernism, finally.
I think so. I think even with the Ghostbusters, that's like a really good sign.
Yeah.
That like it's just like back to basics. Like that, like we steered really far in that direction. Let's like go back. Let's go back into the main course.
Yeah, and I think with that, Hollywood has not like kept up with. They haven't kept up with the times. Hollywood is just. I mean, they do have like a backlog of like 2 years worth of movies.
Yeah, I think that's their biggest problem. They have like 2 or 3 years of like stinky last decade movies that need to come out.
So like the perfect example is like Wonder Woman 1984 is very tone deaf in the time that it came out, even though like it's kind of not fair.
It's not fair for the movie.
Yeah, but like it
is what it is.
You watch something candies and rainbows and bright colors during a very dark time.
Dark time where like, you can't like experience candies and rainbows.
Yeah. And I think now like as things are shifting, it's like if 2010s was favoring Hollywood and corporate media, I think 2020s is favoring independent media and the individual content creators, simply because they're more agile and they can give people what they want sooner than
the corporate stuff has to make it so slow at a very slow pace. Like look at some of these young people on YouTube creating their content. It's such like an evil word to these people, but that's what they're doing. Like every week, every other week, there's something new. These people traveling and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, and doing stuff on their own faster and responding to what people actually want, what kids actually want. And you know, I feel like I don't think the internet and content creation all is old enough to even go through the postmodernist phase yet. I feel like it's like so new that it's going through like how good can we make it, that phase, the realism phase.
So if we were to equate it to Hollywood, birth of Hollywood, let's say 1940s, 50s, and then onward, gets so many periods, but right now we land on this weird postmodernist deconstructing all of our favorite bullshit stuff. But in the internet age, where are we at? If we were to equate it, we're like in like the, I would say the 50s is like the Kev Jumba, like the OG era. Because we look with rosy lenses of like that's what YouTube's supposed to be, like PewDiePie, that era. We're like in the 70s or something.
Yeah, kind
we're
of.
Like we're trying to like focus on like meritocracy and quality and like these things, excellence and all these things.
Because I think
telling
like,
a good story, all those things.
Like classic Hollywood is probably like height of like all the influencers making YouTube videos.
The OG ones?
Yeah, the OG ones. Getting like, I feel like classic, that's like trying to do the like almost like play stagey.
Oh yeah, and then when it was overwrought, just like those movies became overwrought, was sort of like when Jake Paul did the forest thing, and like think people are just starting to spoil and get tired with all these influencers. And now we're in this like just new, it seems like there's just a new era where every big YouTuber is like, who is going to be the next big YouTuber?
Yeah, I think people are just pushing quality. Like how much can we do in something like a YouTube video compared to like they're trying to like refuse the fact that you can be just a YouTuber, just a video content creator. It could be you make mini movies every month or something, which is basically the quality of some of these videos I'm starting to discover and see and stuff like that. For example, like Yes Theory, and there's so many people who I guess you can technically just call them like a content creator, but I think a lot of millennials actually don't know who Yes Theory is. The ones that we know, like the ones in Hollywood and stuff, I actually don't think they know that Yes Theory exists. And if they did, I think it would hurt their feelings.
Why would it hurt their feelings?
Because these dudes are making very, very, very good entertainment. And they didn't go to art school. And they're not
sanctioned by Hollywood. They're not in the Hollywood system at all.
They didn't have to ask to be able to film the stuff that they film. They weren't filmmakers, but they became like, I think it hurts anyone's feelings to think, oh, these average people who don't know anything about filmmaking and art and all that stuff, and to see them not having any of the same knowledge or education or pedigree that you have, all people that you know, doing it, like actually doing it, like actually going out and telling a story almost like documentary style, and doing it in a 3-act structure with a production value that is on par with like any travel channel. And like show on TV.
It's insane. That's insane that the average consumer can
do that.
If they really wanted to, full gun us, they could do that if they wanted to, or achieve more.
Yeah. With things that you can buy at Best Buy.
Yeah.
And like that.
Like you don't need an Ari.
Yeah.
You don't need to make connections like that.
I think that would hurt a lot of people's feelings in Hollywood to know that like these people exist and they're doing it without having to jump through all the gatekeeping hoops that you did. And in fact, they probably are doing it better than you are because they're getting more views than you are. They're more
than your TV show.
They're more famous than you are. People know who Yes Theory is. They don't know who, your brother didn't know who Denis Villeneuve was. He didn't know that name. And I was just like, that's very interesting. That's very, very interesting to me. That like arguably Casey Neistat is more famous in a lot of people's eyes than any director.
That's true.
Out there. And like, that's just how things are leaning towards. Not saying it's a good or bad thing. There are a lot of things people could like feel is a bad thing, that like, oh, kids shouldn't be this interested in like social status. People are so vain, they're so this, but like, you know what, I don't think we're equipped to make a value judgment on that stuff yet. We'll see if all this stuff is good or bad for the Zoomers and society or whatever, but for right now it is what it is. It's just like, if people don't want to watch your movies because your movies are all postmodernism bullshit,
that's on you, dude.
That's on you, yeah.
Anyway, if we're recommending anything, we don't take our word for it. We're a bunch of idiots. Go look up postmodernism for yourself. There's tons of great videos.
Watch the good and the bad.
You watch the good and the bad. Yeah. And like we had to learn this at school.
Yeah. So like
it's
just
a lot.
Comes out of us. Like I was thinking, I think it is very bad for the media, Hollywood, creative types that we have left the fold, because we understand all this like it's like the back of our hand. We understand everything that you're trying to say or do or whatever, and like, you don't want people who understand all this to know, to like, you know, to be able to see through the matrix a little bit and be like, oh, we know what you're doing, all that stuff, to the point where I'm starting to think that, like, I think the idea that art is not valuable compared to a lot of other things in the world, I think it's a lie perpetrated by people who know exactly how powerful it is, and I think they want to be able to control culture and to dictate a lot of things, because realizing that, like, I actually think postmodernism probably came about because of the artists. It's like we really kind of affect the world in ways.
I think it's artists and literature. But yeah, we affect the world in ways that, like you would say all the time, that are invisible. I
think literature is just the idea itself. I think creative arts is the application of it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that, like, it's not that certain Hollywood movies are making a movie specifically with postmodernism in mind for the story. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the movies is the act of a postmodernist doing something to a thing. And I think people look down on artists, but we dictate everything about life and culture that surround you.
So what should every musician who's listening to us, every filmmaker who's listening to us, every artist, whatever, every creative person listening to us who has the gun us, what do you do?
Just do it.
Just do it, I think.
Just do it.
I think that's my gut instinct. It's like every time you've made an excuse for yourself why you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, I think you just do it.
Yeah. Because, like, that's the nice thing about postmodernism, right? That, like, anyone can just do it. Because who are you to say that a person is or isn't? So, like, if anyone's telling you, oh, YouTube is not filmmaking, or that's not art, or whatever, a postmodernist would be like, who are you to say I am not, or it is not? But then that gets into trouble in the sciences and academia. But
in politics.
It is what it is, Yeah, watch Lamb.
Watch Lamb.
It's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
Like, subscribe, and check out these other videos to binge all our other episodes, and we will see you next time.